A new Food and Drug Administration draft guidance seeks to put restrictions on an animal medicine practice called compounding. Compounding is when a veterinarian or a pharmacy creates a custom drug for a patient. For example, a vet who is treating a smaller patient might crush up a pill that is meant for a patient with a larger body type, measure it to a precise number of milligrams, put it in a syrup, and flavor it in order to dilute the medication. Currently, states are in charge of regulating compounded medications.
Some days in the clinic, I may see 10 different species of animals, all of varying sizes, all with different requirements of routes of administration of medication, flavoring of medication, and so compounding is a necessary part of our daily practice. For us, it's not a tiny piece of it, it's daily. And for our patients, they need it.
In FDA Draft Guidance number 256, Compounding Animal Drugs from Bulk Drug Substances, the FDA takes an interest in specifically drugs that are kept in veterinarian offices for emergencies and drugs made directly from an active ingredient, called a bulk drug substance. However, according to state regulations, keeping drugs on hand, called office stock, is not allowed in West Virginia.
We can't keep pre-compounded medications on the shelf to pull out and then divvy up to individual animals. So currently our regulations are, if we're going to compound a medication, it's got to be for one specific patient. It has that patient's name on there, and that's the only one that gets it. We can't pre-compound and have a bunch of stock medication sitting on the shelf that we divvy up. Now, some states do allow that, but here we don't.
The big change for West Virginians will come from regulations on compounding using a bulk drug substance. A bulk drug substance is the active ingredient in its most pure form, without any fillers, dyes, or other things that come in a finished pill. The FDA said in their draft guidance that they believe that compounding using an FDA-approved finished pill should be first priority for safety and effectiveness. According to Wedgwood Pharmacy, one of the largest animal compounding pharmacies in the nation, there are several reasons why compounding pharmacies use bulk active ingredients, including avoiding potentially harmful inactive ingredients, avoiding any variation in potency, cost efficiency, and availability. Pharmacies and veterinarians can't remove certain fillers from finished products that patients might be allergic to. Some examples of potentially harmful fillers are certain dyes, a sweetener called xylitol, which is toxic to dogs, and a preservative called benzyl alcohol, which is toxic to cats. According to My Meds Matter, a site sponsored by compounding pharmacies, unnecessary fillers and binders also add volume to the dosage size, making it difficult for them to make smaller doses for smaller patients. In addition, the site says a compounding pharmacy looked at how prices would rise if they had to make the product from a finished product instead of bulk ingredients. The analysis looked at 8 of the most frequently prescribed compounded medications that represented 45% of all prescriptions filled by the pharmacy, and they found that the average increase for those products was 300%, because the cost of the active ingredient as well as the cost of labor would increase substantially.
So you could guess, if we're making a chemotherapy drug for a dog that is available in the human health market, except it's too strong for the dog, and we would have to fractionate that medication. But just starting with a human health chemotherapeutic agent, already the price is set for what human health insurers pay, not what animal health pet owners pay out of pocket. As an example, lomustine, which is a very common oncology medication, would go from about $40 a tablet to over $700 a tablet. So you can imagine, if you're a pet owner, you might decide you can't afford to treat your dog for cancer if the price went that high. There's a very commonly used drug for copper toxicity. It's penicillamine. And that drug would go from under $80 for a 60 count to over $15,000 for a 60 count. So how could you treat your pet if the medication was $15,000? You couldn't. So we believe this guidance is potentially going to cause not only unnecessary suffering, but unnecessary death, because people who could have maintained the health of their animals will be forced to put the animals down because of the cost of the medication. This will also impact, shelters that take care of animals. It will impact rescue organizations. It'll impact zoos and the treatment of endangered species because they use a lot of compounded medication because the populations of zoo and exotic animals are so small, there really aren't a lot of FDA approved drugs to help them. So they depend heavily on compounding as well.
One of the many reasons why a vet might prescribe compounded medications might be that there is a shortage of FDA-approved drugs. In fact, according to Bliss, Wedgwood Pharmacy started compounding animal medication when drugs for horses that were FDA-approved were discontinued.
Another reason is definitely when there just isn't a drug that's approved to treat the medical decision of the doctor, things need to be treated, or there's a backorder, a manufacturer backorder, and there's a drug that patients are maintained on with a chronic condition, say, and then that drug goes on backorder and they need that medication.
In those instances, a finished product might not be available to the pharmacy to compound for a patient. Also, according to My Meds Matter, many pharmaceutical manufacturers will not sell their products to compounding pharmacies because they worry it might negatively affect their sales of their product. We reached out to FDA officials who deny this point, saying that if a patient needs to use a bulk drug substance for some reason and an FDA-approved product is not available, compounding using a bulk drug substance would be allowed under this draft so long as the drug is not a copy of an approved product. Officials also say that the draft is an attempt to recognize that there may not always be approved products for each specific patient, but the intention here is to encourage people to use a product that has been evaluated for safety and effectiveness.
The process of if you go to the store or you go to your doctor gives you a prescription and you go and buy a prepared tablet, that does go through a different set of safety mechanisms. And there was a concern in the past over injectable medications that were contaminated with fungal contaminants that were given to humans. And so those, without some regulation, you could get to a point where you could be in trouble. However, the current regulations are pretty tight, and if you go to the high quality compounding pharmacies, you don't just try to get the cheapest one, but you go to the high quality compounding pharmacies that have appropriate quality control and quality assurance mechanisms, then you can get it very safely.
According to My Meds Matter, compounding pharmacies get bulk substances from FDA-registered and inspected facilities and receive a certificate of analysis verifying the purity and quality of the ingredients. Also, standards for state licensing and accreditation for compounding pharmacies are often rigorous, involving lots of tests and inspections. But aside from all of these controversial points to the draft guidance, there are still some points that Bliss even agrees with.
Well, I think some of the early parts in the guidance are workable. A veterinarian should have a veterinarian-patient relationship before prescribing medicine, and I absolutely agree with that. This guidance also indicates that compounded medication should not be used in food chain animals. I also agree with that because it hasn't been tested for withdrawal time, so you wouldn't want to be eating dinner and have compounded medication in your chicken because they haven't been studied for that reason. So I'm in support of those two aspects of the guidance. And other than that, I think it should be left to states to regulate because they've proven that they can regulate this at the State Board of Pharmacy level and at the State Veterinary Medical Board level. And I think they've demonstrated that they have a proven track record of doing that very well.
The FDA is accepting comments on the guidance until October 15th. After that, officials say that they will review the comments and make changes if necessary, and then put out a final guidance or reissue it for comments again. Full text of the guidance and additional resources are listed down below. For WBOY.com, I'm Shayla Klein in Morgantown.